Hector and the Search for Happiness. I'm looking at my notes here, and I've referenced another book, and I started to read that title. The title I'm referencing is Elegance of the Hedgehog, and some of you may know that. Now, Hector's a very much different book. It's a charming, delightful, sweet-natured book. The principal character is a psychiatrist who's too nice a person to be a psychiatrist. He's good to his patients. He doesn't charge them enough. He listens to them rather than just saying, how did that make you feel? But he gets a little burned out, and he needs some time away, so he decides to take a trip around the world, on which he thinks he will try and discover, that is, what it is that makes people happy. So he keeps notes. He has a little journal, and you see his entries as he goes along, and finds these various and assorted things that make people happy. The book, it's easy to mistake this book for a children's book if you don't stick with it long enough, because the language is so simple. The vocabulary is actually fairly limited. For instance, when Hector and his girlfriend have had dinner and a bottle of wine, they go back to her apartment and they do what people who are in love do. And throughout the entire book, whenever this happens, it's always, and they did what people who were in love did, which is sufficient task. You really don't need to know any more than that. When Hector has to perform a task that's very odious, he doesn't want to do it all. He says, it made me feel like when you were called to the blackboard. And you know exactly what I mean. He's not being anybody. So this is the kind of language that makes up this book. It is delightful. And there's some thrilling stuff in here too. Hector gets kidnapped by militants and his life is threatened. He goes to the country with the most psychiatrists. That would be here. So it's charming. One of the people at Tattered Cover had the most delightful take on this book I think I've ever heard. She said, reading this book is like having a cup of tea after walking through a snowstorm.